Good morning. The time is 5:30 in the morning, and I'm up because I went to bed early. I was not feeling well yesterday, and I still think I'm having a cold, but there's a possibility I may have hay fever. I've never had hay fever, which is why I think I've got a cold, because I've also had a temperature. Anyway, instead of ending up at the allotment as my brain wants me to do, I've decided I'm going to show you what's growing in the home garden. And we're going to start in the back garden, where we have another lot of meteor peas, which were sown slightly later than the ones in the front. And as you can see, we're flowering and fruiting. I've had the front garden peas. They were lovely, but as I've forgotten which YouTuber, what she said is they're not worth the effort, because you get so little in way of produce for so much work and so much space taken up, and it is true in a certain way. So I'm going to try beans to see whether or not they're any better, because she said beans are better. In here we have sugar snap peas, together with one of the many volunteer tomatoes, which come up on their own in all my pots, because I had a lot of tomatoes last year. It does make me wonder whether or not you really need to plant tomatoes every year, or just cross your fingers and hope for the fact that you'll get some from the ones that you planted last year, especially if you had a glut and some of them dropped off and rotted into the ground. Okay, next to it is an okra plant. It shouldn't be in the back because this is a north-facing garden, but it is doing okay. I've got it in a pot with compost, as well as some of my bokashi compost. These are my bokashi bins here, so I put half bokashi, half compost, so we'll see how it does. Next to it, I think these are either sugar snap or I don't know, sugar snap or mangetout, one of the two, and they're doing well. I've finally given them some support. I don't think it was appropriate to grow them in here, but it is what it is, and I've got a bit of height in case they grow tall, because I was told that the meteor would grow to 30 centimeters and mine grew longer than 30 centimeters. I think at least a meter plus. So not always the case that what you're told is the truth. Hidden amongst them is a red pak choi. There's another small one in there somewhere, but I don't think it will actually grow because of the fact that, hold on, I have to sip some coffee for my throat. I don't think the other one will grow until we remove all these. I can see it in there, but it's remaining small because it's overshadowed. These are more sugar snap, and they're doing okay. They were planted slightly later. And then I've got red pak choi, which is growing very beautifully and will be up for harvest in a few weeks, looking very nice. I've got another lot of red pak choi, so you can actually see I've got different sizes because they're different ages, because I'm trying this idea of succession planting. This is rape, which is commonly eaten in a lot of African countries as a vegetable, and it's absolutely yummy. And oh yeah, I forgot, these are spring onions. We've got more spring onions here. We've got a couple more baby pak choi, which were almost totally and completely decimated when I put them in the ground, but they're doing fine now. Most plants seem to like living, and therefore they will survive a lot. There's more spring onions. And then over here we have a pot of rape, which is growing really well. I've got one or two which are flowering, but that's okay. And more rape down here. So if a plant flowers, it's normally because it's stressed, and they were stressed because they were in very dry conditions whilst they were in pots, because I wasn't looking after them because I didn't think I was going to keep them, and then I did. Here we have rape. Oh, over here we have rape, which is actually flowering, so I'll need to harvest. Let me take this out first of all. It's actually edible and lovely, but I'll take it out and just put it there for now. But these will need to be harvested and used by this weekend because of the fact that they're all starting to want to harvest, because I think they're to flower. They're a bit overcrowded, methinks, which is, no, it is what it is. It was an experiment. It's worked better than I thought, and so we'll be eating those on Friday most likely. This is still empty because I'm not sure what to put in it, but above it, hold on, I'm pruning as I go, we have I think these are sugar snap on either end, a cup of sugar snap on either end, and then in the middle we got green pak choy. And as you can see, there's some in the back which are not growing as quickly, and there's some which are growing faster, but that is to my advantage because it means I will have a staggered harvest cycle. Further down we got more rape. You can see I've got a lot of rape simply because what happened is I thought it wouldn't germinate, and every single seed I planted germinated, so I ended up with a glut of it, and I got quite a bit of it in the allotment as well. And mixed in with it is a bit of spring onion, and then further down we got spring onion, and that's what I have in the back garden. Right, let's go to the front garden and see what it is I've got. Okay, I love the way I've set up the back garden. It gives me joy every time I come out because, as you can see, it's just a picturesque space with a lot of green. Ignore the watering cans. I do love it. This cherry plant tree, which I bought this year, is just about hanging on, and I'm thinking I'll put it in the allotment, so it's not going to stay here, which is why I didn't show it to you. Okay, and now we come out to the front garden. Messy side that sparks joy. And we're going to start with the star of the show. As you can see, you can't even see it properly. I'll go to the other side of it. But this is my Sangold, which I planted and had growing throughout winter. I'm now training it to go up that way and have a few different branches of it. And we've got plenty of fruit. I've been harvesting fruit from it regularly. When I transplanted it, it sulked for a while, but now it's gotten back into its normal groove and it's starting to provide yumminess again. I like Sangold. I love the taste. I love the smell. To me, they smell like perfume, peachy. A perfume with a hint of peach in it is what they smell like, even the leaves. And they taste amazing. And then down below it, I put in a few French beans in the pot, as all I have in there in this 30-litre pot is the Sangold, and obviously it's sat on a self-watering system, as are all my pots. So there is water in here which is feeding this pot constantly. So when I need to feed the plant, I just put my feed in here and it has constant feed without me having to remember to feed it. On here, I have no clue what these are. They're like an animal spitting saliva, but I think it's eggs, and I don't know what type of eggs they are. If someone knows, I'd be grateful, because I keep getting them all over my plants. But in this pot, I've got a blueberry, and look, I've got a strawberry. These were volunteer strawberries which ended up in here, not of my own volition but by themselves. And got blueberries. So tiny plants. There are 2 of them. I bought them last year. I didn't expect much for the first year, but it looks like we are going to have some blueberries, and they're just starting to form fruit as we speak. I really do not know what animal does this. I keep coming and washing it off, and then I find more. So if anyone knows, please tell me. Next to it, we have tomato plum. Despite the fact that I had plenty of tomatoes, I decided to go and get some which I didn't have from the shop. And as you can see, they're doing well. They were tiny babies when oh my God, this is a side shoot. So that will need to come off and get put in its own container. So that's a tomato plum. This one, I have no clue. It's possibly an Alicante, because I wanted to know what the Alicante is like. We have got some flowers on there already, and it's growing beautifully. This one is also sat in a container, sat on a self-watering system, and this is its reservoir down here. And yeah, the reservoir is full at the moment. Here in front of the possible Alicante, I've got pepper, and another pepper. So I've got quite a few peppers in here. The two of them are sat in their own containers, and then that one is sat in with the tomato because the bag is big enough. And then here is another tomato. Don't ask. Tomatoes are like weeds. They grow very beautifully and without effort. This one started off by side branching right at the beginning, so I couldn't do anything about it. And look, it's already got its own lovely flowers just there. So, but then has a different smell to the other ones, as always. All the tomatoes have different smells, and I love them because that means they'll have different tastes. There's a side shoot here as well, but one of my neighbors, and another side shoot there, one of my neighbors is struggling with his tomatoes, so I'm going to root some up for him and see how they do. We turn around and I've got more tomatoes here. These are the money maker, because last year I had money makers and I loved them. To me they tasted a bit like apple. And look, we've already got flowers, and we're also getting side shoots which will need to come out today, and flowers in that one. So there's 2 of them in here. And this was a strawberry brag which has not been a good success, but because for some reason the water doesn't go all the way down, so I've left these empty because it's quite dry up here on top, but on the bottom it's wet because it's sat on a self-watering system. And so this strawberry is doing fine. Yeah, it is wet here, it is wet there. So these tomatoes will do fine, and that's their water reservoir there. In here, more tomatoes. Oh no, these are the Alicantes, so the other one might be a Shirley. And there are 2 of them, as you can see. And they're much slower growing. May as well take off the side shoots as we're chatting. And they're doing fine as well. They're also in a self-watering system, but I think the wicks I used on that one may not be as good, and therefore it's not getting as much water. So I'll have to give it a little bit of a drink. In fact, let's do it now. Hold on. So I got wicking cord in there, and obviously it's not working the way it should. So I have to remember that next year when I'm putting up my pots. But I mean, this looks beautiful, doesn't it? And it'll grow even bigger. And when all the tomatoes have grown bigger, it'll be like a jungle, which looks lovely. Over here are some broccoli plants, which I decided to keep here rather than take to the allotment. They don't have self-watering pots because I didn't know whether or not I would have the space to put their bottom end pots, supporting pots in. So I have to keep them watered regularly. And they're doing absolutely beautiful in their pots, which have a mix of bokashi compost and then shop bought compost. So what I did is an old compost. So they're doing absolutely lovely. In the front, this was pak choi, which flowered. And this pot here is empty, but we have some onions here, which have taken a long time to grow. But they finally look like they're going to bulb up this year. But I've just left them. I didn't worry about them. They were here all year last year. And then they were here during the winter. And now they seem to be doing something. So, well done them. I need to take the old leaves off of this broccoli. And that means opening it out. I hadn't opened it out because I don't have time to sort it out. I haven't seen any cabbage whites yet, so that's a good thing. My daughter has a competition at work to see who grows the biggest and the tallest sunflower. So this is her sunflower. There's another one here which she needs to pot up. And then we got another sunflower here and 2 sunflowers in one of my compost pots. And she needs to tie them up because they're growing bigger. But she hasn't been looking after them. Seems to have forgotten them. Next to them, we got another pepper plant, which has the beginnings of peppers. It's California Wonder. I got aubergine, which seems to have a lot of flowers in it. All these are on self-wicking, so this is on a self-wicking container just there. And then this is from my quad grow. So it needs to go in there. This one, aubergine, is sat on another self-watering container, and with this one you can actually see a little bit of how it works. So I've got wicking material going into the pot, just as you do with the quad grow, and then that wicking material is then going into the container in which I put the feed and the water. Do you know, I didn't know that slugs eat these, but because this one is leaning against the edge, slugs have been eating it. Last year I had aubergines and no slugs touched them, and this one looks like it's got a few aphids on it, which tells me that it's stressed. So I need to feed it, because it's only stressed plants that tend to end up with aphids. And also what I will do is I'll do my neem oil. I did neem oil last year and it was absolutely brilliant. Killed them dead, and that's what I want. So I will have to do a neem spray on them to make sure that the infestation doesn't go out of hand. But that tells me this plant is stressed, so I need to feed it. In here is a self-watering pot, which I got from Lidl. It's a good one, but I overwatered it, and so I didn't have a successful germination of my French beans in here. They just rotted down, but I'm waiting for it to dry out, and then I will put some more in there. Still need to plant up something in here. Then in here I had a peony, but it did not make it. No idea why. It was my first attempt at flowers, although I'm not much of a flower grower. So I left it. I had put some carrots around the edge of it, and those have germinated, as you can see, just there. And also, once again, I seem to have a volunteer tomato in there, which is growing by itself. So let's see if it will flower. If my tomatoes this year flower, so the self-germinated ones, the volunteers flower and fruit, then we know the answer. We don't have to plant tomatoes so early to get a result. I've got carrots growing beautifully. These I chitted, but then what I also did is I added more baby carrots in the bottom. I re-sowed some more. These I sowed direct and they seem to be doing fine. Next to it we have an aubergine plant on a self-watering system, which is not big enough for it, so it needs to be moved, probably swapped with one of the others. And then here is another carrot pot. First sowing was not successful. Second sowing, as you can see, was successful. So we will be having carrots. And we turn around to this side. In here was my disaster tomatoes, which I put out too early and were too cold, and they did not survive, as you can see. But then next to them I have another volunteer tomato, and I sowed a few carrots in here which were successful, and I think I've got, these are weeds, but the other day I pulled out, what did I pull out? I pulled out my early celery out of a pot thinking it was weeds. So now I'm going to leave weeds for a little bit before I pull them out, because I know that they are easy to pull out of these pots because the soil is nice and soft. I'm sure these are weeds. Looks like dandelion weeds, so I'm pulling them out. I don't like having them. And then what I do when I pull them out is, this one has a composting little space in there, so when I pull out the weeds I just put them in there to break down, and then when I water through here, and the composting stuff goes down. Yeah, so you see in here I've got a few celery. This is an onion and it's doing well. These are also onions which are much slower at growing than this one, because I think this one is individual and separate. So, and then I've got another bunch here, and I'm tempted to take these to the allotment. Hold on, let's pull that out. I'm tempted to take them to the allotment, separate them out, give them a chance to grow bigger. Or should I leave them? What do you think? I don't know. I don't know what I think. So this is one of the disaster tomatoes, still hanging on. As you can see, tomatoes like to live, and so it's still hanging on. And next to it is the aubergine I put in here when I thought this wasn't going to grow. And the aubergine has a flower and looks like it's got more flowers there, so they just need to be fed to grow well. So onions, celery is what we have in here. And I have another disaster which is still growing. It broke on here, but it started a side shoot which I've decided to leave to grow. But you know what? In here is also a volunteer tomato, as you can see, and that also looks, yeah, a volunteer tomato, and possibly a Swiss chard or beetroot. So that's doing fine. In the pod grow I've got pepper, which is not doing too well, but I didn't add the feed before, so that's why. And we've also got strawberries. These are not doing as well this year. This is their third year, so probably they're getting old. And oopsie, I'm knocking my plants. We have more strawberries here, as you can see. These are all new shoots that we're allowed to root in this container, and they seem to produce much better fruit. So I am sold on the idea that if you want to have good strawberries, you need to renew your plants every few years. I mean, look at these, they're doing really well. So I'll be doing that empty pot. I'll actually set it here on the ground, and when the shoots start, I'll start pointing them into here in order to let them grow into there, and that will be great. Behind it, I think I'll start in the back row. I've got tomato plant there which is successful, but don't ask me what it is, and it's in a self-watering system once again. In here was one of my, this was the disaster, but seems to be doing okay now. And there are 2 volunteers which came up and are being left in there. This one is deader than dead. So I'm leaving it there because I'll be putting another tomato plant in there. This one seems to somehow have survived, regardless of the fact that I thought it was going to die, and it is flowering, so we'll see what kind of flowers it gives me. The one in that corner there did not survive, as you can see. Let me get a bit closer. And in the bottom of it, looks like we've got some volunteer Swiss chard in there. Over there, we got raspberries. So that's a raspberry and that's a raspberry. This raspberry is doing better than that one, so I need to give that one a seaweed feed, because that color tells me that it hasn't got enough nitrogen in the soil, whilst this one is doing really well. So when you look at them together, one is dark green, the other one is a light green. Okay. Oh, sorry, my pots, I don't give myself space. I let the plants have all the space. So in here I have beetroot growing here, together with a few celery seedlings, now that I know what they look like, and a successful tomato whose name I do not know. So we'll see what the tomatoes look like once they start to ripen. More beetroot, multi-sown, so it's in a clump. It's the yellow beetroot, and it seems to be doing okay. I've got red basil, planted other seeds in here, but they haven't actually germinated. The only thing that's come up is the red basil, so I'll have to put more herb seeds in there because I wanted to make this a herb pot. So we got mint here, which I transplanted from the one that's constantly growing, and I'm going to put, and I'm leaving that layer to be filled with mint, or I might get some purple mint to put there and lemon mint on the other side. In here are seedlings I set up to germinate, and they're not germinating, only a few have come up, so, but there's no rush. They'll grow when they want to, and if they don't, we can always try again. Here is my fig tree, which I've had for 2 years now, and this year we got our first fruit on it. It's in a pot without a self-watering system, but it seems to be doing fine, and so I'm happy with it. On the table, which should be free really, we have celery, which took forever to germinate. It was absolutely horrendous waiting for it. And my sun gold shoots, I'll be giving some away and some will go to the allotment. And what I did is, I think one of these shoots was really long, so what I did is I decided to put the stem I cut off into the soil to see whether or not would get anything on it. So far the answer is no, but we shall see. It's not dead yet, it's still green. This is my remaining okra, which hasn't got a home yet. One of these is a pumpkin, the other is melon. I don't know which is which. And I don't remember what I planted in here, so I'll have to look at my old videos to know what it is I planted in there, because it's coming up. These are climbing beans, which need to go into the allotment once they get a little bit bigger, and I need to prep that bed. This is my pot of self-volunteered tomatoes, and as you can see, they grew by themselves. There are so many. I keep offering them out and no one wants tomatoes, because people who grow already have too many, and people who don't grow have no clue what they would do with them. So they're still sat there with Stella trying to decide whether she can be cruel enough to compost them. I swear, if I had space, I'd go and start just planting them into ground secretly all over the place to give them a chance to survive and live. But this will look lovely once all the plants are grown up. Here, let's ignore the peas because they're doing great. I've had a harvest from them, and I think I prefer them when they're a bit like mange too, so that's going to be my focus in any future harvest from them. I don't know that I'll grow them again because they've taken up my pot and they're not going anywhere. And as you can see, they're more than 30 centimeters tall. Even if they're on the ground, they're still too tall. Okay, next to them we have a volunteer tomato, which was initially decimated by slugs, but it came back from a stump of nothing to now become a proper plant. It's most likely a Roma, because close to here I had Roma tomatoes. Excuse me. I've also got some French beans in there growing around it, and I've also got a Turkish aubergine with a few that are ripe for harvest, so I'll need to get those two out, and all I'll do is I'll boil them just so that I can have the true flavor of the aubergine. This grew really fast, and sadly I gave away all my Turkish aubergine. I didn't realize I'd given them all away until I came to plant and found I only had one plant left. It grew really well and really fast, so next year I know. We've done the peas. We got 2 okra plants, one of which had aphids on it. Oh, I think I've got a ladybird larva here. Let me see if I can get to it. I think that's what it is. Just there. Let me hold the leaf up. I think that's what that is, because I had aphids on there, and I was going to do Nemo, but it looks like it's been sorted by itself, so I'm not going to worry about it anymore. So 2 okra plants which are growing really, really slowly in their quad grows, and yeah, I can't see any of the aphids that were on there before. Well, there are a few on here, but there are none on here, so obviously it's worked. On here we have aubergine with loads and loads of flowers, and another aubergine with loads and loads of flowers as well. So both are doing well. And then I think that's it. Oh yeah, one last thing. These are the corn I sowed to replace the ones that were not successful, and we've had good success. I think I put 4 in each of these big ones and 2 in each of these, so I've done well. And behind, these are some of the volunteer tomatoes that I potted up, and as you can see, they've all grown really well and are thriving. So, and their roots are coming out the bottom already, so they can be potted and put out. Okay, I think that's it. Everything else has gone out. So that is what is growing at home. It's quite a bit. I didn't expect it to take that long to show you everything, but it looks like I do have quite a bit growing at home. And this is my favorite point at the moment because it's the biggest. It's the Sangold. It looks lovely. Anyway, have a good day. As you can hear, the birds are awake and it is time for Stella to go get ready for work. Don't know what time it is now, most likely it's 6 something, but hopefully this will still be here when I come home because it looks ripe and ready to eat, and I'll hide it a little bit in case that people do not see it. But then they don't look down, do they? So they may not see it and it might be mine to eat when I come home. Have a great day. In my filming, I forgot to show you these guys. I don't even know how well the video is going to come out, but I've also got some chili peppers, Trinidad perfume with the beginnings of fruit. These are California Wonder, another chili pepper, more California Wonder. They need supporting now because the fruit is getting heavy. And in there is another California Wonder. So not bad, eh?